Hello, welcome to episode 12 of Should I Make My Family Watch, a podcast where I make my family and friends watch crappy horror and sci-fi movies so you don't have to. I'm your host, Desiree, and joining me today is Cassandra O'Sullivan Sachar.
Sachar with an S.
Got it. Perfect. Yeah. Okay, you know your own name. Good job.
I do.
Sorry. Cut that part out. Welcome, Cassandra.
Thank you, Desiree.
Together, we're going to give you a detailed breakdown of the storyline as best we can, and then rate the movie on the shit scale of 1 to 5. 1 is only a little bit shitty. 5 is the worst pile of crap in history. And today's is the 2008 release of Toxic Skies starring Anne Heche, which sounds great, but is not. So we're going to spoil it. If you want to watch it yourself, don't listen, but I don't suggest it. And Cassandra's going to start us off. So how did this all begin?
So I have to say, and I already knew that the movie was going to be bad because of the way that you do your podcast. But at first I thought, oh, Anne Heche. And I was thinking 2008. I feel like that was maybe when her career was going well. And so I thought, this has a chance of being a good movie. But I very quickly changed my opinion. I would say within the first maybe 30 seconds or so, because we start off and there's so much telling. And yes, this is a movie versus, we're not reading it, but there's a guy driving and he can tell he's being followed. And, there's a mysterious package and, it's really, really important. And so it's like, okay, we're right into it, which you might think would be off to a good start. But for me, I immediately started feeling seasick by the cinematography. I don't know, maybe they got their training at, I don't know, somewhere terrible. Because I was going to say somewhere and I thought that would be mean to say a specific place. So just insert somewhere terrible. I'll just save my trashing for the movie versus anything else. But it was so shaky. And I guess that we were trying to do something, but honestly, I was immediately distracted by that. So he makes a really important phone call, and we later find out that it's his brother he's calling, and he calls him Jack. Jack is a character we're going to be introduced to a little bit later. And then the guy gets back to his apartment, and now bad guys are there. And before we know it, he tells them that he has proof. He has proof. Oh, no, he told his brother he had proof. Already it's getting so messy. And he tells the bad guys that he's not going to tell anybody. It's all a secret. But they're bad guys. And so they kill him anyway. And it just goes downhill from there. Now it's 12 years later. 12 years later. And
I didn't catch that.
Oh, yes. See,
That's a long time gap for this.
I understand the significance of 12 years later. I mean, were the bad guys doing these bad things all this time? Was the brother just not really worried? They made it seem like a suicide. So, his brother committed suicide. But then it seems that what has been happening for 12 years is that the brother, Jack, has been doing his own conspiracy theory board. And so we see right away, it's really not a surprise. And yes, it's a spoiler, but this is the first 5 minutes of the movie? Chemtrails. Now, I don't know about you. I did not know anything about chemtrails. Apparently, it's a whole thing. Did you know that already?
My other podcast is a witchcraft podcast, and science kind of mixed. And so we're kind of in with the woo-woo community. And yes, there is a large chemtrail, people making tinctures to block the side effects.
Okay.
And so it was, not my first chemtrail, but I was like, I'm not sure how they're going to tie this with outbreak.
Well,
and they didn't.
They struggled greatly. So, but we know from the beginning, okay, there's going to be stuff about chemtrails. I had to look it up because I have never heard about that conspiracy. But then soon we meet our hero of the story, Dr. Tess Martin, played by Anne Heche. Now, even at this, I'm like, Anne Heche. She looks great. Immediately, I was thinking that she is not going to be good in this role because she's on the phone call, and the phone call sounded just super fake. Like, oh, and she's being driven to the hospital in this fancy car. So we get the impression, ooh, she's really important. But maybe we could have just waited until they had her introduce herself, because we find out she is important. She's this special, what is she? She's the Global Health Organization expert, and she's come to a hospital with her good buddy, Dr. Patel, who is a terrible actor, just plays people and delivers every line in the same voice, like it's a
Same
soap
face
opera.
too.
Yeah, no matter what he's saying, it's the same voice. But we find out there's an outbreak, patients have flu-like symptoms, and they're not responding to treatment. We find this out from Dr. Patel and the nurse. What was the nurse's name? Emma or Nancy?
Emily?
I don't know. Whatever her name was. She also was very cheesy. And she's the
Memorable.
only nurse at that hospital.
Yeah.
So let's see. At first, Tess and Dr. Patel put on their hazmat suits. I feel like that was a really smart thing to do, as they're going in and they're dealing with these infectious patients and they don't know what's going on. But notice I said at first, because the hazmat suits don't last long. And then we find out, oh no, we don't know what it is. They're not responding to treatment. And then what do we see? Cue the super, super dramatic music, which music, I don't know what you thought, but I thought there were a lot of scenes that were just way too quiet.
Hard to hear what was happening.
Yeah. There's no noise in the hospital.
I know, for me, it seemed like it was kind of filmed like a mix between a sitcom like The Office, like a mockumentary style, and Grey's Anatomy. So it kind of flashed between these like hyper realistic, like almost found footage, shaky camera, like weird walk-off shots in the hospital where she just kind of poses and it zooms in on her face.
I felt like we could almost hear what the director was saying, like look really serious, because it was just, think back on the past. But so the super dramatic music happened when the waiting room is crowded. Oh my gosh, we work at a hospital, but what is this? Lots of patients. What will we do?
Right.
And then soon enough and the doctors just are looking on helplessly. Oh my gosh, this is such a disaster. Then we get to Jack, who lies about being a reporter. Did you catch that? He was lying. That was his cover story, was that he was a reporter.
Except he was still going around and reporting on things.
Yes, so confusing. But
pretty thick cover story.
Yes, we find out later he's involved in this special interest group. But I felt like he was super creepy. He's a good-looking guy.
Oh, yeah.
They have a kid, or they had a kid together in real life and were together for some time.
I would not have guessed that.
Well, because there's zero chemistry between them.
Yeah.
But he was so creepy. He's trespassing. He's giving her a hard time. There's the one press conference. There are lots of press conferences, which to me was really boring. And I kept trying to force myself to pay attention. But the one press conference, you'd think he'd want to hear their answers, but then he just runs off to go talk to her. Super creepy. So yeah, there's the press conference. She wants them to shut down the city. This is a quarantine situation. Again, interesting watching that in 2024 from 2008. And the military people, the mayor, the CEO guy are all like, no, we won't shut down the city. And she walks away. And then later, she and Dr. Patel are hanging out together. I can't believe they're willing to compromise people's lives. That was the line. I wrote it down.
Kind of an understatement, I guess.
Yeah. Delivered with zero emotion. Like, I can't believe they're out of coffee. I really wanted
not butter.
I know. It's cheesy. And then we get into all of the characterization of the patients. Did you like how they humanized the patients?
I thought that was annoying.
Yeah. So
like there's more than 5 sick people in that room.
Right. And the acting, the first girl especially, I forget what her name was. She was the air stewardess. She was awful. And then we have the college kid who's having an affair with her professor. And
Mm-hmm.
then things are starting to come together. She has her own conspiracy board. And she's like, oh, how are these people connected? And she had said before, oh, these symptoms they're showing, it seems like they're symptoms that have been in Asian countries. And then we find out he's been to Malaysia. But that's a red herring because that's not really why everybody's sick. And then we
Mm-hmm.
go to the house. Tess just goes to the house as the World Health Organization expert by herself. And what she has that little like mask.
Mask,
Touch,
yeah, N95.
I had to, we see the dead cat. I thought it was a monkey at first. I had to
Mm-hmm.
rewind that part. I'm like, I think that's a cat. She finds the dead body and is just very casually, and then Jack is there stalking her and being super creepy as usual. And somehow she decides that the disease isn't airborne. But how? How did she
She
figure
never
that?
explains that part, but she also decides that before she ever says it, because she walks into his house, sees the cat dead.
Yeah,
So unless he like swapped spit with the cat, it is airborne.
I don't know
'Cause
what.
she's like, it's only through fluids. Well, what do you do
Well,
with the cat then?
Well, I mean, he clearly blurred lines because he was having an affair with his student. So I don't know what was happening with the cat.
He has no morals.
And were there any other animals affected by this?
No,
Yeah,
no.
it's to just be those people in the hospital.
Yeah,
It was a
I don't
mess.
know what he
So
was
let's see.
doing.
Then Jack is there being creepy again, not wearing any kind of protective gear, despite the fact that he's been researching this problem perhaps for 12 years, but
Mm-hmm.
doesn't think I should be careful. And then there's the creepy landscaper guy who's hitting on the nurse a lot. And would you go out with me? Oh, I don't date patients. What if I'm not a patient anymore?
Oh, right, right, right.
What was that all about? I
I thought
just,
he was a college student. I guess I didn't catch
you
that
know,
part. How'd
it
he
was
get
weird.
sick then?
He shook the guy's hand. So again, this is what they determined because he was the landscaper for that professor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And the one lady cleaned his house, and the girl was his girlfriend slash student.
Okay.
And so everybody was connected. But I just feel like if you're a doctor, you should be more cautious about
Oh,
touching things and how germs
100%.
work because this wasn't 1800 something. They
Right.
understand, they don't know what this is. That's especially why they should be careful. And they're just being way too casual with these sick people. Put your hazmat suit back on. You don't know what's going on. So,
I did not understand why they went from flu-like or pneumonia and flu-like symptoms
yeah,
to calling it the plague
right,
and like
right.
examining pustules and stuff. To me, that still warrants a face mask and,
Yes.
gloves.
What if something squirted on you from a pustule? What if somebody
Delightful.
is violent? Oh, like we had that situation with that one patient who didn't want to die. And so
Right.
then we just, oh, now we're compromising our own safety. So I took a bunch of notes, and I think that the biggest problem for me with this movie is that it tried to be really smart and was not the least bit smart. So you have a movie like Inception. There's a lot of story to keep track of. But the whole thing is that it works. It's smart.
Hmm.
There are several people who are thinking about plot holes and how different parts connect, and they make it work. And as a viewer, you're a little confused at parts because there's so much going on, but it works. As a viewer, I was confused at several parts of this movie, not because it was too smart for me, but quite the opposite. Tess getting that package of propaganda about chemtrails, and then she goes home and looks at stuff on the computer, And then in a few hours, she's totally sold. Oh, I just found out about this, but okay, I'm a doctor. I'm this really fancy expert, but oh, okay, I read like 2 articles, so now I'm on board with this conspiracy. What?
Yeah. She's essentially the head of the World Health Organization, or their expert, and she's like, don't need to read any scientific material, just need this packet of news articles from people on the internet.
So yeah, I think about the halfway part was the part where they go to the diner. Oh no, but then first Jack was in her car, and he
Yeah.
said, "I'm not a bad guy." Oh, okay. So you were hiding in her car. You clamp your hand over her mouth, but then she can trust you, which she does because she goes to the diner with him. She trusts him because he does tell her he's not a bad guy.
Yeah, right.
So there you
Makes
go.
sense. Believable.
Bad guy.
And then this is kind of for me where things started to
Yeah.
really unravel. And I struggled to keep the plot of how, I guess, he's aware of all of this because of his brother and the group that he's in,
Yeah.
the chemtrails thing. What I couldn't figure out was, were the chemtrails making people resistant to the plague so that the antibiotics would not work? Or were they sick because specifically of the chemicals in the chemtrails?
I think that the military or the government planted something in the chemtrails to make people sick, to make them need the vaccine. But again, people are already sick. So logically, it doesn't make sense that they're going to get better once they get the vaccine. They need something more than a vaccine if they're already sick.
Correct.
So
That's why they're using antibiotics.
that's where the conspiracy comes into it, that it's not just people getting sick. Oh, they traveled, they picked something up somewhere. No, it's the government who's doing that. And the CEO of that medical supply company.
I have never met a pharmaceutical company who has their president representing them at a hospital ever. Like that. There's so many reps at those kind of companies. Like, you would never get to the top guy ever.
And he was at that in the courtroom earlier when the military was there and the mayor. Really, why was he there? Logically, to me, that made no sense. Why was this guy there?
And I actually didn't realize until about that point in the movie where they had the big press conference with the military, it was supposed to be set in Spokane, Washington. And I was like, nothing in that movie tells you where they are. They literally could have been anywhere, except for they said Spokane.
Yeah, they said Spokane, and they also said Seattle, but I don't know.
Clearly not. I don't know why that was important. They could have just left it, and it would have been pretty much the same. So let's see if I can track. I did not take notes at this part because when I was like, this is not, I no longer have any hope for this. I know that sometime in that, Dr. Raj, I think that's his name. Yeah, gets bit by that patient and then becomes infected.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like a bite mark.
I don't know.
I was looking at my phone.
So was I. I was like, wait, how did he get hurt?
He somehow gets the fluids.
Yeah. I forgot
into a cut
where he explains why the other doctor, Tess, is so passionate about saving people. She lost a child. And so, let's pull at our heartstrings, except we already don't care about the character because she's not believable. So it just did not make an impact on me. And again, the way he delivered those lines, it could be anything.
Yeah. Well, and he was very specific about it was meningitis.
Yes.
And I don't know what that had to do with what she was doing, except for maybe she made her more into communicable diseases, I guess. Vaccines.
And I think it only happened 2 years ago. So, I mean, what was her position before then? Because she's in a really big position. So maybe her daughter, and immediately rose in the ranks to get to her higher station.
To
I
fight
don't know.
disease.
I don't
So,
know.
and she also doesn't have any backup. Like, there's no scientists around her, no doctor. There should be like a team here, and it's literally just those 2 doctors and 1 nurse
Yes.
in the whole hospital doing all the testing. And I swear to God, her gloves, none of her gloves fit. They were like floopy floppy.
Yeah.
And she kept touching her face, touching her hair, touching other people's faces in the same scene. Like, touch the pustule, touch the face, touch other person's face.
Yeah.
And I was like screaming at the TV. Like, nobody, that should have been the one thing somebody double checked. Aside from the vaccines don't cure illness. That's pretty big plot hole.
Maybe before they started making this movie, and I looked up some things about this movie. So obviously, from everything we saw, not a huge budget, but you know what their budget was? $3 million.
It's enough to ask one
$3
doctor.
million, you can get a doctor to come and read your script or be on set. The doctor can say, hey, that doesn't make sense. Hey, stop touching your face. Stop doing that. And oh, how about that vaccine thing? You want to do something different there. $3 million. Tell me, what did that pay for?
Some hospital beds, I think. I didn't see. Oh, the hazmat suits, probably.
Which they barely wore.
Yeah, the one for the one scene.
Yeah. The barbed wire, there was that. So
yeah. So to wrap it up, I don't know if I got it exactly right. Somehow or another, they find that it is the pharmaceutical company who supplies their hospital with most of its stuff that helped create whatever was being added to the chemtrails by the military. So they're trying to say it wasn't the military's fault. It was the pharmaceutical company because they were going to make a vaccine to counteract it. But he was holding on to it even after people were dying because he wanted to, I guess, charge more money at the end.
Yeah, because the military was definitely at fault too, but then that military guy was acting like, oh, we were just doing this. But at that point, I didn't care.
Yeah.
Care.
Yeah.
Because it was so ridiculous at this point.
And she and the man interest, I think you said his name was Jack.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, when they finally get the vaccine and they're giving it to people and people are getting better, which doesn't make any sense, but we've already established that. You see the pharmaceutical president get taken away and he goes to court and they get the vaccine and they sue him and they basically pin the whole thing on him. Yes. And then you see the military official who was apparently at a lower rank mid-movie at the end of the movie has been promoted and is wearing a real big fancy suit. And then he sends a knowing look back towards Anne Heche's character in Raj. And she just looks a little irritated, like, oh man, military got me again. And then it's the end of the movie.
It just stopped. And I thought when the credits came, I thought, wait, how long was I distracted for? So I rewound. I was like, no, I didn't miss anything. There was nothing. And so I did look at a few reviews. And the best thing that I read that somebody said was that it was watchable. It was watchable.
Oh, I mean,
several reviews. Oh, and there was another great line from Dr. Patel. So Maria dies, and Tess is upset because my patient, and also cue the, oh, my daughter, she died too, and I couldn't save her either. So the patient dies, and Dr. Patel just says, there's nothing you could have done. Okay. Again.
I feel better. That's great.
Right. Just no emotion whatsoever. Where did they get this guy?
I guess if you think about any other characters she plays, she's not really an emotional, like, you don't get the emotion in her face when she's acting, which I thought was part of the appeal as they put her as a doctor. But did not deliver, like, there was no empathy. She played the very tired, irritated doctor very well to a point, but they just didn't ever expand on that. So I feel like it should have worked.
I've seen her in other things where I thought she was good.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing really comes to mind, but I never thought she was bad. So I do think that the writing must have been a lot of the problem, because I've seen actors I love. Somebody who comes to mind is Josh Holloway, who played Sawyer in Lost. And I loved Sawyer. And then I watched him in some different show he was in, and the writing was so bad that even having that good actor deliver the line, he couldn't save it. And so I want to give her a little bit of a break, but also, why did you take this role?
Yeah, especially
Did you
at the
really?
kind of height of
Yeah,
her
right.
career there.
I mean, this
And there was
was,
nobody else, except for maybe her husband. I don't
yeah,
know if they were married. I've never seen him in anything
they were
else.
they were in some show together. I never watched it, but it was called Men in Trees. I don't know why I did that. I look at IMDb a lot. So I recognized him, and I used to read back in 2008, before I started my doctorate. I used to read Us Weekly cover to cover every week. Guilty pleasure. I stopped doing that at some point, but I think that's why who he was, and that they were together, and that they had a kid together.
Interesting. I wanted it to be so much better than it was. And I think, like I told you earlier, I got through about that first 15, 20 minutes, and I was like, this is not the worst thing I've seen. This might actually be okay. And then it just plummeted. Like the second they tried to tie in the plague with chemtrails, and there was no real purpose for what the military was doing. Like you got to give it at least a motivating factor, because the military does not make money off of this sort of action. That would be the pharmaceutical company. So if you removed the military facet, the movie would have probably worked better if it was
Yes.
strictly, like pharmaceuticals and big jet companies or something.
Yeah, I would have just removed the chemtrail angle itself.
Yep.
No,
Yep.
I guess that they were trying. I mean, this movie didn't do anything. I guess that's how they were trying to transcend tropes, because we have much better contamination outbreak kind of movies, like, oh, outbreak.
Outbreak.
And so
Contagion.
it made, and just the whole red herring thing about, oh, this professor was in Malaysia. So we're thinking,
Mm-hmm.
okay, he brought something back. No, it has nothing to do with that. So
Yeah.
why did the military put the contamination in that particular chemtrail? I don't know. The whole chemtrail thing just, it wasn't working for me. It wasn't believable. It didn't make me think, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I should be worried about chemtrails. It just seemed dumb.
Mm-hmm. I agree, 100%. So what would you give it? What's the shit rating? 1 through 5 for you.
So I will bring up that again, IMDb. IMDb gave this a 5.0 out of 10, which is bad. However, for a movie that's horror or sci-fi, that's not the worst rating, because I do look
No.
at movies, and there are many that will get like a 3.4.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying that this isn't the worst movie. And so in general, I try not to watch the worst movies. I try to watch movies that are decent at least. So it's not the worst movie. There was a lot that's bad about it. So no, wait. 1 is the worst and 5 is the
No,
best.
5 is the worst.
5 is the
1 is
best.
only a little bit crappy, and you're like, all right, I'd probably watch that again if I had to, or it came on sci-fi at night, but
I'm going to be pretty neutral then, and I will say a 3. This
okay.
was pretty bad, but
Yeah.
I know that there are worse movies out there. They said their lines. They weren't good. I don't know. Maybe a 3.5. Can I do a half?
You absolutely. You
Okay.
can add a
Maybe 3.5.
0.72.
Yeah, it was not good, and it really, to me, if it had not tried so hard to be smart when it clearly was not, that would have made this movie much, much better.
I agree.
What would you?
I originally rated it a 2 out of 5, but I had to really think about if it came on TV and I was like laying in bed at night if I would let it stay on. And the more I think about it, the more it makes me mad because especially during COVID, like my position was to go in and decontaminate rooms that had high levels of COVID, right? So I used to harp on the people I would train, do not touch your face. Do not touch yourself with your gloves. It is dirty. Everything below your waist is dirty. Everything over here is dirty. And like, you don't even have to be a doctor or in the medical field to know that the basic, like just the basics. No one consulted anybody, and if they had just tied up a few of those things and then completely left the chemtrails thing, I think it would have been watchable. So I think I would have to agree with you, 3.5 out of 5, because I would definitely change the channel if it came on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm telling you, just that shaky cinematography at the beginning and throughout, just nope.
Like if
it's not
pick
quality.
one, if it's gonna be a sort of a gritty documentary style, or like I'm trying to think of an example. I thought of it when we were watching it, but it would cut away to like the hospital TV drama kind of filming.
Right.
And then it would go back to the like turning camera at the really intense scenes. And I don't understand what it was trying to give you there.
I don't know if it was intentional. Yeah, it made me seasick. I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know if the people who made this movie thought they were making a good movie or if they just knew, yeah, well, this is what we're doing and it is what it is. At least we got a couple names that people might recognize. I don't know, but it was pretty darn bad.
I think it probably went straight. I would assume something like that would go straight to TV because I don't remember hearing about it in the theater, but I mean, 2008.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that it was theatrically released.
No,
but
that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think that it was a made for TV movie either. So my guess, especially with a $3 million budget, which I think is pretty impressive.
Pretty big. Yeah.
Did anything impressive with it. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think they could have done more. I know some people who have made little indie films for a fraction of that have been much, much better.
I agree. All right. I'm ready to never think about that movie again. It's really depressing. So now we're moving into some author questions. Are you ready? I love your mug, by the way.
I just got it today. This was a gift I got myself after going to an art fair where everything was really, really, really expensive. And so as soon as I was done, I ordered something special for myself as a reward for not paying like $100 for a different mug. So this one was only under $20 from Amazon. Yay.
Perfect. Very, very fitting. What is your favorite shitty movie?
Let's see. See, again, normally I just try to watch movies that are actually good. So what's actually a bad one that I like anyway? So something from childhood rings a bell, and I haven't watched it again, but I'm sure it's bad. Did you ever see the movie House with William Catt? It's an old movie.
I don't think
it's
so.
probably, I'll tell you, it's probably from the late 80s. And it just is a really goofy haunted house movie. Oh, here's one that's a pretty bad movie, but it's fun, is the House on Haunted Hill. Did you ever see that one? That's late 90s.
Had Catherine Zeta-Jones in it? Or
it's a different one. It had Funk Jansen in it and Jeffrey Rush. But it was, both of these are haunted house movies that are just not smart. They're goofy, but they're fun. So I wouldn't say that I have a best shitty movie, but I will say sometimes that, okay, this isn't good, but it's fun. It's enjoyable. So I'll take it.
That works. What is the worst movie you've ever seen? What's a movie you hate? Any genre.
Okay, Ghost Dad. Now, I would like to point out, this is with Bill Cosby. This was back in the day when everybody loved Bill Cosby because we did not know who he actually was. But that movie was so bad. basically he's the dad, and I guess he dies. And it's just, I don't remember why I hated that movie so much, but I hated that movie. It is
That's
truly terrible. And again, don't anybody go watch it, because who wants to give Bill Cosby any money?
yeah,
No,
really.
nobody wants to do that. But it was an
Good point.
awful, awful movie. That's the first
I
thing that
have
popped.
not seen that one.
Please don't.
I will not. I appreciate when I ask that question and people get immediately really irate about like one specific movie. I think for the last person who had one like that was Chuck Nasty, and he hates the whole Jeepers Creepers franchise with a burning passion because of the director, and
See,
was very upset about it.
I have tried to watch that movie, and after people telling me, "Oh, it's so great," and
Mm,
I started, and I don't remember, it was a long time ago, but I wasn't into it. But I wouldn't say that I hate it with a burning passion. It's rare that I've been better lately at when I realize that the movie is bad, to just turn it off instead of saying what I used to do. Well, it'll probably get better from here. It won't. It just, when has that ever happened? If you hate it,
never.
you're going to continue hating it. And that's just how it is.
Actually, no, that's not true. I have one movie that has happened with, and that is Hell Comes to Frogtown with Roddy Piper.
That sounds
I
horrible.
hated it. Is I don't even have words to. The only reason I haven't done an episode on it is because I don't know how to describe what I feel about it all the way. The whole first half of the movie, I was yelling at the television and at my husband for making me watch it. And then the second half of the movie was like magical, and I can't stop thinking about it. And it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
I sort of, to a lesser degree, feel that way about Parks and Recreation. I did
Okay.
not enjoy season one, and then I loved it season two. And I don't remember. My daughter and I started watching it season one, and we're just like, we don't hate this, but we didn't like it. But then somebody's like, no, you have to get through season one. And they were right. I love Parks and Recreation. But again, I didn't hate it. So it's hard. I don't know that I've ever done such a 360 on something if I started by hating it.
You seem a little more even keel. I am more likely to throw hate out real quick at things.
Oh, no, I will. I will. I'll start watching something. So back in the days of Netflix where they sent you the DVD in the mail,
Yeah, I
for a while,
remember.
I don't know why, but I just made it my mission that I would always watch the top 100 Netflix movies. So I was constantly checking that and making myself watch things. And I watched a lot of really weird stuff that I normally wouldn't watch just to stay up and current with the top 100. But the movie that broke it for me, that I could not get through, this could give me some hate. It was Star Trek. I can't do Star Trek. So I
The
started
newer
watching
one, or which one?
all of the above, I guess. It's just not my
That's
thing.
fair.
I love horror, but if you have me in space, I'm not into it. But I tried. I rented it. I put it on. I got through 5 minutes and was just like, and I'm not going to do the top 100 Netflix movies anymore.
Now, do
So,
you dislike all space sci-fi stuff in general, or just Star Trek very specifically?
in general, if the setting is space, I'm not usually going to be into it. I think that there are
Okay.
certainly exceptions. When I was a kid, I liked all the Star Wars movies. I had Star
Mhm.
Wars action figures and whatnot, Ewok Village. But then I just, as an adult, when the new movies came out, I watched one and just wasn't into it. So, if I'm not taking a test on something or going on a podcast talking about a movie, I don't watch it. It's not, we only have so much free time, and so
Mhm.
you put me in space. I liked Alien, but I'm not going to go see the new one. I've seen enough. Not my
That's
thing.
fair. If it's
Put
not your jam, that's
put me in a haunted house. I'm there.
unless
I'm,
it's with Bill Cosby.
if Bill Cosby is there, there's some true horror to be had. But yeah, and Bill
Yeah.
Cosby is well. But I will take a ghost, a haunted house, a zombie, any day over stuff going on in space. If you throw an alien in, I'm probably not into it.
I think that's totally fair. That's a fair opinion to have. I adore the Aliens franchise, but
Uh-huh.
I hate any books or movies about actual alien abductions from like around here. I think they're super boring. But I don't know why. There's not really a difference between the two, except for one seems more like a monster. So maybe that's it.
Yeah, I don't
I would
mind.
assume.
I like creature features. I like things like Bigfoot and whatnot. But yeah, aliens, not really into it.
Okay, what
Hopefully,
is your favorite?
hopefully that's not
Go
going
ahead.
to tell all the aliens to come and experiment on me because I said I'm not into aliens, and now I'm pissing off all the aliens and they'll be out to get me. But
You're protected by the chemtrails.
oh, excellent!
Yeah.
It's good to know that they're there.
It segues into my next question because we kind of touched on this, but what is your favorite horror genre? What is your subgenre that you enjoy the most? Which it sounds like might be haunted house, supernatural. What else do you enjoy?
I love a good slasher. This is
Okay.
Scream, absolutely my favorite horror franchise. So I don't need supernatural to be involved in horror. I need killings, I need death of some sort.
Mhm.
And when it comes to my own writing, when I write horror, I kill lots of characters. That is just
As you should.
yeah, a friend of mine said, he's like, I think that you made somebody die in almost every story. I have 27 short stories in my new book. And he's right. I think I had two where somebody didn't technically die, but that's it. There's a lot of death. So different
Death is
kinds of death.
scary. That makes sense.
So I
You
would say I enjoy the supernatural, but I also enjoy realistic horror as well.
some slashers are not very realistic, I would
Correct.
say.
I agree. But if I don't mind if it's a movie, I don't mind some campiness. I enjoy that. And even in a book, I enjoy some of that. Some of my own writing can get pretty campy at times, and then I'll hit you with the next story and it's completely tragic. And then the next story is something else. So I really like to vary it when it comes to my own writing, and honestly when it comes to my own reading and viewing as well. But I love horror. I love horror movies. I love horror books. Just keep the aliens and the outer space out of it. And
Do you,
I'm likely
do
it.
you feel like movies are the best way for you to get your horror fix, or do you like audiobooks? Do you like reading it? How do you like to get it?
Well, I have never read an audiobook and I probably never will because I won't listen to it. I won't pay attention. For me to pay attention, I need to be looking at something. I don't know what to do with my eyes, and I'm just going to tune out. So I like reading books out loud to kids or whomever. I like doing readings, but when it comes to listening, I'll happily listen to an author do a reading because I have
Mhm.
some look, but I can't do audiobooks. So, I mean, I read more than I watch movies. I read every day. When I work out on the elliptical, I read. And I usually read horror because, you can't read something that's really slow moving when you're working out. So,
Mhm.
and I read mostly ebooks. So that's how
Like on a Kindle or an e-reader?
yep, on a Kindle. Stays on the elliptical, can travel with it. And so I very rarely read physical books anymore, unless it's a book that I have to read for work. And I might write on it and whatnot.
Annotate and all that. Sorry, I lost my place on my list. What would you like to see more of in horror? What do you feel is a topic that needs more focus or an untapped market?
Huh. Well, this is this is not particularly focused, but what I love. So I love playing with horror tropes. But my whole thing is that I need layers when it comes to horror, because I think that it's completely boring when we just get this same old tale recycled. And so, yeah, give me zombies, but don't make it just the person against the zombie or the group of people against the zombies. I was a huge Walking Dead fan for a very long time. But at some point, even I turned it off. I did not finish the series. And I
Mm-hmm.
was so into it for so long because to me, it just was the same old thing. And so I don't know that there's a particular area. I just want, oh, actually, I thought of one. Um, I really enjoy Possession, but I think that there's way too much about priests and demons. And
Mm-hmm.
so, my new novella, which is forthcoming, is a possession tale. It does not involve a demon and it does not involve a priest. So, I think that that's a
Nice.
fun area to explore. And a couple indie horror writers have definitely given their shot at that and have had really good results. And so, I'm doing mine because when I'm writing something, I like to get myself in the zone, even when I'm not actually writing. And a way that I do that is that what I'm reading, what I'm watching, I want to be in that kind of area. And so earlier in the summer, as I was starting to write my novella, I was watching a lot of possession movies. And it was just priests and demons, priests and demons. And it became very boring where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this isn't a bad movie, but it's just been done so many times. And what new twist are they adding? And a lot of times the answer was, there's nothing new. It's just the
Yeah.
same old. And so I always enjoy just doing something different, combining elements in a way that isn't expected. And that's what I think my novella does is put some things together that you wouldn't expect. And I don't know. I had fun with it. Only a few people have read it so far, but coming sometime whenever.
Well, that sounds exciting. I enjoy I agree with you. I think that the trope of sort of Catholic or Christianity possession very
Yeah.
specifically has been completely obliterated. It's been done so often, but I have found that like there's a few specific Asian horror movies where like it'll be like Buddhist possession. They have
Okay.
their own kinds of demons and things like that. Those possessions are a lot more entertaining and very like rich in atmosphere. And I really enjoyed, I think one of them was called The Wailing on Netflix. Was really really good. I got to look that up again. I've watched it twice. It was such a good movie, but I think if I had to pick, definitely switching into possession from any other cultures than our own is way more interesting.
Yeah. And you're right. Specifically, Catholic possessions,
Hmm.
exorcisms. It's just, I feel like it's the same basic story again and again
Mm.
and again. And give me something different. I want variety.
I agree. What do you have coming up? It sounds like you have that novella. What do you have that's going to be released soon that
Well,
people can take a look at? Is that what's in the back there?
wait, let's see. Okay, there we go. Okay, clearly I am not a weather person. I would do horribly with a green screen because that's real and I still can't point to it.
It's like
Okay.
flip flop. There you
Right.
go.
So you got see. So Keeper of Corpses is uh, technically it's out now. The
Hmm.
ebook release is on Friday, the 13th of September, which is a really exciting day for a horror collection to come out. But you can get the paperback or the hardcover now. And I will be actually doing a giveaway pretty soon with a signed copy and some other fun stuff. But Keeper of Corpses, I'm very, very excited about because, as I said, it's 27 short horror stories, and it really just runs the gamut of the genre, I think, and has a lot of different types of horror from body horror to, as I said, some just really tragic tales to some classic tropes with my own spin, like haunted objects and revenge killings and just killings because, and I really, really had a lot of fun with this. Some of the stories, there's one story in there that I wrote the original draft of in seventh grade. Most I
Oh,
wrote
wow.
last year. Yeah, but it's been a long time coming because I've always loved short, scary stories, and so finally I have my own collection. So that's that. I My debut novel only came out in March, and so that's dark suspense. That's called Darkness There, but Something More,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's
No.
about an Edgar Allan Poe scholar slash college English professor. Not me though. I'm an English professor too, but not technically a Poe scholar, just a lover of Poe. And she gets involved in this death of a student, this investigation, gets pulled into it, and we explore her story in the present as a college professor and also in the past when she was a college student pledging a sorority, and darkness and also something more ensues. So that's what I already have published. And then I have a new novella, which I said is a possession novella that is coming out sometime. Who knows when yet? It's new, but that's called Close the Door, and that is a horror novella.
That's very exciting. I am going to have to get your one on paperback because I love reading something in its paperback form. I feel like being able to touch the pages just makes me happy inside. But I will read it on e-reader if I have to. So that is a pretty magical date you've picked for release.
Well, I didn't pick it; my publisher picked
Oh,
that. But hey, I'm excited. So
it's like serendipity.
it worked out as soon as he gave me the date. What I thought, because it was, I think he gave it to me maybe in late June or July, and so I was thinking, please let it be Friday, please let it be Friday, because he just said September 13th, and so then I was like, yay, Friday the 13th. I mean, it's a good date for that kind of thing to happen.
Where can people find what you have currently? Is it Amazon? Is it bookstores? Is it publisher?
Amazon, I would say
Okay.
mostly just the easiest way would be Amazon, and I do have lots of copies. I'm happy to personalize and sign if anybody hits me up on through my website, or even if they send me a direct message on Instagram or Facebook. I would be happy to send a signed copy. Or again,
Oh,
you can
that's
get
me.
it.
I'm gonna hit you up for one then. I'll reach out to you after the show. Where can people find you if they want to talk to you? Do you have social media? Are you TikToking?
Yeah, not so much.
No.
I mean, I'm on TikTok barely. I'm working on that. Let's just say that in the past several months, let's see, it's August now. My book came out March 1st. So I have done more on social media in the past several months, the past 5 months, than ever. So, it's not really a comfort zone for me, but I've tried. I've tried. So, best place to reach out to me would probably be through my website, which is just my whole name.com, Cassandra O'Sullivan Sachar.com. Sorry, everybody, for making it right so much. And there's no apostrophe because apparently you don't get an apostrophe as part of a website, which is rude.
Yeah,
But
that
it
is
doesn't,
weird.
yeah, the difficulty of having a last name with an apostrophe in it. So that's my main.
I
So what?
will link that so that people don't even have to search. All they have to do is click. So I'll make sure I link that in the show notes.
And
Last question.
sure.
What are you currently reading and or watching that is not shitty?
So I just finished the Brawl books
Oh,
uh,
okay.
for books of horror. And I am about, my next book is actually your book. So I didn't start it yet.
That's
So
nerve-wracking.
I'm excited. I'm excited to read it. So right now I'm currently reading Paul Tremblay's horror movie, which
Ooh,
I'm
that one looked
enjoying.
good.
I am not enjoying it as much as Head Full of Ghosts, which I read, which is a possession book, which I've read a couple of times, and I really, really like that one. But I'm enjoying this. I'm into it.
I thought that one was an interesting take on an if you were going to pick interesting exorcism books, was that one. But I guess that was, I'm not even sure I would label that an exorcism book or a possession.
Because, right, without giving too much away, there's a lot of questioning in terms of, is it for real or not?
Yeah.
But I really like the way that's done. I am a big lover of a dual timeline. Oh, there goes a dog.
Sorry.
No, we actually have a dog visitor right now, as well as our regular dog. So
Extra dog.
I didn't think my dog visitor would be a problem. It would be my dog. He would probably bark and scream and just be crazy. So he's outside with our visitor dog. But oh, this is a different dog.
The little pitter patter of feet. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, and I'm sorry that I made you watch such a crappy movie, because you are right. We should spend more time watching the good ones, but you might find a gem. That's what I always say.
It's true. And I will have
been good.
More thought to what's a bad movie that I just like, even though that I know it's bad. I like lots of movies that other people don't like, but I think they're good.
I think you nailed it earlier when you said sort of campy, because I think people a lot of times equate something shitty and also comforting with camp. That's sort of like a warm and fuzzy horror is the campy. So maybe I'll rephrase that, because people seem to struggle with that question.
Well, and I have to rewatch the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, because that's really what got me into horror movies in the first place when I was a kid. I know that they're probably ridiculous, but they're fun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're filled with goofy, terrible puns that Freddy throws out there. And so I don't know. It's probably
he's the king of the one-liners, I think, in that.
Absolutely.
All right. So thank you again for coming on the show. And if you come on next time, I will not pick a better movie. It will probably be about as dumb as what you got this time, but I hope you won't mind that too much. And if anybody has recommendations for the next piece of shit that we're going to watch, you can email me or find us on Instagram at SIMMFW podcast. And everybody should just go out and watch shitty movies so we can talk about them. Okay, thanks. Good. Bye.
All right. Bye.